All right, all right. Grace, mercy, and peace from him who is and was and is to come very soon, I'm certain. This is Rogue Diabetic, and welcome to the digital wilderness. So I guess I'll do I need to find an intro, like an intro song, and I'm thinking about something like this to go something like this. Donald Trump is the Antichrist. The vaccine is the mark. Do do do. At sunset in Jerusalem to cast Antichrist Trump into the lake of fire. Do do. All right. So after that, I guess I'll just plug for a little bit for until some people start to come on, and then we get started in earnest. This is I'm live on the digital wilderness. This is my main YouTube channel. I have a backup channel. I'll put it in the a pinned comment or something. But I've also got my my BitChute channel and my Rogue Diet and my Rumble channel, and they're both Rogue Diabetic. Except BitChute is ROGUEDIABETIC. It's all lowercase. Rumble is the exact same thing, but it's capital R. So, and I mentioned something in my teaser a little bit earlier today about possibly going live on BitChute. I don't think I will tonight, but eventually at some point we're going to have to start these here on YouTube and then move them over to BitChute because there's certain topics that I can't cover in the way that I want here on YouTube. So just keep that in mind. I know nobody's heard that yet because there isn't anybody on my stream yet. But I mean, here's the thing. The topics that I want to cover tonight are, maybe aren't gonna. I don't know. I thought that's all. It's really all anybody's really talking about. And maybe I'm wrong. I mean, maybe people maybe this would have been a better night to do another flat Earth video, another flat Earth stream, or another stream of like a Bible study, something like that. But I thought we would do the stream tonight on the topics, specifically on the topic of the recent Trump conviction, and about what this is like, how that's going to affect things moving forward. So, but there was a couple other things that I wanted to point out before we get to our main topic of discussion, which is going to be the Trump treaty or the Trump conviction. And I just kind of want to hit on those because actually those are more important. This Trump stuff is a distraction. Okay, they're distracting you from what's really going on with this, absurdity with the Trump nonsense. I mean, it's absurd. See, they go after Trump for all this trivial nonsense, but then they totally ignore the genuine substantive, legal and complaints against Trump. I mean, if you take all this hush money trial for one thing, I mean, it's not a. I mean, their case is weak as far as a criminal case goes. Their criminal cases against him are weak. There's several cases against him are weak. This Trump hush money trial, it was a weak case. I mean, based on what I've seen, even if I hated Trump, even if it was a Democrat, I couldn't throw them in jail. Although, back when I was a super partisan hack, I don't know, maybe I could have found a way to throw somebody like Bill Clinton or John Edwards or one of those prominent Democrat, Republican, politicians. Maybe I could have found a way to throw them in jail for paying off a porn star to keep quiet about an alleged affair. But I mean, now that I can take a step back from the partisan aspect of it, I mean, it's not there. Okay, you might not like it. Might be a reason not to vote for Trump. The fact that he paid off this hooker, this porn star, so she wouldn't reveal an alleged affair. Granted, he denies that they had an affair. I mean, I don't know. Maybe they did. Maybe they didn't. It wouldn't surprise me either way. It wouldn't surprise me to find out either way. It wouldn't surprise me to find out that no, he never touched this porn star. Because, he can get like any kind of pussy that he wants in the whole world. But it also wouldn't surprise me if he did. Because, I mean, he's a pussy hound. He likes pussy, obviously. Okay, he's been married and divorced 3 times. And so the question becomes is did he, like, break the law? I mean, that's like, that question is independent of whether you should vote for him or not. I mean, me personally, I don't know. It would be at least a yellow flag for me to learn that Trump had paid off a hooker, a porn star, a stripper, anybody like that. That would be a yellow flag. It wouldn't necessarily be a red flag. Because the next question, the red flag would be whether he actually had sex with her or not. And I could like if it's a choice between Obama or Trump and Clinton. I mean, then you can call it an idea about the lesser of two evils. Okay, they're both serial fornicators, both Trump and Clinton. I think it's pretty clear. And maybe Trump has changed his ways. That was the way he sold it to us at first, is that he was no longer a serial fornicator, that he was faithful to his third wife, Melania. And so, I mean, if that's the case, then I could potentially give him a pass on it, but or like the gay Obama. I mean, Obama is a homosexual or bisexual, and we don't know about Michael or Michelle, whatever you want to call him, her, whatever. Okay, but it's like Obama is a serial fornicator too, and it's not just like he sleeps around with other women. He sleeps with other men and women. So all these guys, Obama, Clinton. Right, and then Hillary is married to a serial fornicator, even if she isn't herself, although I mean, I don't know. I don't know if she's just like not into sex or whatever. Maybe that's true. But if she is into sex, I would suspect that she's not into sex just with Bill. So, I mean, but independent of the question of whether this is like somebody you want to vote for, and then they're like the ancillary question is like, well, who else are you going to vote for? Okay, if your choice is between Trump and Hillary, who's at minimum an enabler of the sexual predator, or Trump, a sexual predator himself, who are you going to vote for? Now you could say neither, but then of course then that's the whole, lesser of two evils. It's like, are you gonna vote for Bobby Kennedy? Are you gonna vote for me? Are you gonna vote for yourself? Are you gonna throw away your vote? So, and these are all questions that are. I mean, I've finally come to the realization that I'm just not voting anymore. Because obviously all these elections are rigged. We're given a choice between a turd sandwich and a douchebag from South Park. I mean, there's like no, if there's no good choice, then that means that that doesn't mean that I have to choose the least bad choice. If they're both bad choices, then I don't have to then that's just, you just don't vote or you write somebody's name in. So, that's kind of like that's what's become my position on that. I always used to be one of those guys. There always be like, you should vote. You should vote your conscience. And I was always kind of one of those guys that had sympathy for certain right-leaning political parties and political ideologies, like the Libertarian Party, that didn't necessarily stand any sort of real chance of ever putting up an electable candidate more than on just a local level. And even then, I bet there isn't any more than a handful of elected libertarian officials in the whole entire country. And then if you're on the left of that, if you're on that left spectrum, so I always used to make the vote that it was like voting for a third party candidate was like throwing your vote away, which now I think is silly. But I think every vote cast is basically meaningless now. They decide these elections. There's no freedom. They predetermine the outcome of these elections ahead of time, from like president all the way down. Sorry, guys. This is all set up and rigged from beginning to the end. There's a group of people that's pulling the strings, that's deciding in advance who's going to win these elections. And they have a number of different ways of manipulating them. And just because it got even more blatantly obvious that that's what they were doing starting in the 2020 election cycle, and the last two election cycles, it's been like grotesque. The manipulation of the elections has been grotesque, but it's been going on for a long time. In fact, the fact of the matter is it's been going on from the beginning, and definitely and we don't live in a free country anymore. We haven't lived in a remotely even free country since the Civil War. That was a tipping point. And it may have been somewhat free, or even mostly free, or at least free for some people that were able to just tune all of this out. They were far enough out onto the frontier that they could just live off grid, and they could, they had the talent and the wherewithal to feed themselves and families and stuff like that. There's people out there. There were people out there like that probably all the way up until the World War I or the Wilson administration. But starting in the early 20th century, they've gotten that was another tipping point with the creation of the Federal Reserve, World War I. Lincoln was the first to impose a income tax, and then after that, they expanded that. They kept taxing more and more and more, and they ramped up the enforcement of it. So then you fast forward to the Great Depression, and Franklin Roosevelt, and that was another tipping point where Franklin and Roosevelt, where that was where they passed all the, that's where the deep state really had its flowering, its first flowering at least. The seeds of the deep state were planted in the early 20th century, going into World War and after World War I, but then it just exploded during the Great Depression and World War II. And so we really haven't lived in a free country since the World War II. But but whatever freedom there was out there was already starting. There was already like an erosion of it, beginning at about the time of the Civil War, and that was even said in that the erosions of civil liberties before this were already set into motion before the Civil War. Okay, we didn't free the slaves in World War and Civil War. Okay, just we enslaved the rest of the people. The blacks were already slaves, and then heading out of that, everybody became a slave eventually. Over the next 75 years ago or so, and then it continued to devolve through the 50s to 60s. There was an ebb and flow. But then the Nixon administration was another huge tipping point. Nixon was no conservative. I mean, he created more bureaucracy and more big government. I don't know about more big government, but as much as Roosevelt, as much as Eisenhower. Eisenhower was probably actually one of the more quote-unquote conservative presidents, but he was still not a conservative. He didn't respect states' rights. He federalized, basically the roads. And then when you get into Reagan, I mean, the bureaucracy exploded. So he wasn't. So he talked a good game. Reagan talked a good game, but he wasn't a conservative. And if you look at, and he wasn't a constitutionalist, because if you look at one of like Reagan's signature accomplishments, if you want to so call it that, was the Vaccine Injury Compensation Act. I can't even remember what it's called. But he was the one that signed into law the immunity for vaccine manufacturers and the stripping of the right to sue somebody that harms you. At least, for one class of people. So, well, I don't got anybody on yet. I'm starting to lose my voice already. So now that the history lesson is done, let's get into it. So I'm going to try to share this. I don't know if this is going to work. I don't have anybody on, so I don't know. but I'm gonna try sharing some of these tabs. And if nothing else, then I can at least talk to you guys. So the first thing we're going to do is take a look at the headlines, today's headlines. From Google News. CNN, Trump's lead attorney reacts to the verdict. We're not going to read that. As some voters celebrate Trump conviction, Democrats remain cautious. Trump verdict live updates. Trump vows to appeal after being convicted on 34 criminal accounts. That's Yahoo Voices. And the Associated Press, Trump responds to guilty verdict by falsely blasting rigged trial. Okay. Okay, so as you can see, or as hopefully you can see, top stories are all about Trump. And this is the way it's been for a while. And it's all a distraction, ultimately. And anything that you get from like Google is going to be slanted. It's going to be slanted towards the left and to anti-Trump. Okay. Now we're going to take a little bit more in-depth look at some of the reaction, but most of it's going to be from the right. Okay. Now, me personally, this is my I mean, like the left is going to be like, this is not a neutral headline. Trump responds to guilty verdict by falsely blasting rigged trial. Now, if you took out falsely, it might be roughly neutral. But I mean, a neutral headline would be Trump responds to guilty verdict. And then you would let your readers decide. You wouldn't use these inflammatory. You wouldn't use the inflammatory language. Okay, and I'm not defending Trump. I'm not attacking Trump either way. But I'm just saying this is the Associated Press, and it's not a neutral. It's obviously it's not neutral. It's against Trump. Okay, and the reason why they do that is to get everybody all jazzed up against Trump. To get their people jazzed up against Trump, and to get the right to like get jazzed up against, his whole claim that he's a victim. I'm a victim. And we'll see a little bit more of that later on. But so when you see all this slant, and this is some voters celebrating Trump conviction, Democrats remain cautious. I don't know how true that is exactly. Whether Democrats are remaining cautious or not. but I mean that's a classic New York Times, because New York Times tries to play it like they're in the center. They aren't. They're on the left. And then when you get on the right, wing of this, well, I'll show you that in depth, in detail, what the reaction on the right is. But I can tell you right now, it's the exact opposite of what they're portraying. You know, the reaction of the center or the left is.